Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Indie Designers Journal. My name is Jason Glover. Today we're going to do a few fun things. First we're going to take a look. We're going to switch things up and actually look at a game first. Then at the back side we're going to do something kind of different. So we're going to look at this game called Mindburners. This is by one of my buddies, Nathan. He's also responsible for making a fantastic solo game called Doom Machine, which we'll be looking at in a future episode for sure. That's a really fun game utilizing dice. Mindburners is more of a card-based game, but we'll turn the camera around here in a couple of seconds here, and actually I'll show you a little bit of how the game works and the things that I like about it. After that, we're going to do something different. We have been looking at different game mechanics in previous episodes, the previous 5 episodes, and I thought it would be somewhat entertaining to take a gander at some random jotted notes of mine from some of my many notebooks from the past decade. I keep all of my notebooks, as you can see, for my game design. Basically, these are my game design journal. So I figured since the channel is Indie Designers Journal, I figured maybe we'll look at a couple of these. We'll just grab some random ones, open them up, and see what we have. Now, I'm gonna let you know ahead of time, there's a lot of garbage in here. Anyone who has a bunch of notebooks like this filled with ideas, majority of ideas never turn into anything. It's just a way of getting it on paper. I think it's really important, and obviously I'm good at that part of it. So yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna go through these, or not all of them. That would be insane, but we'll see how that goes, and maybe we'll do that and do it again in the future. So that's what we have on the agenda today. So let's turn this camera around. Let's take a look at Mindburners and get my thoughts on it. Okay, welcome to the table. What we have in front of us here is a 1 to 4 player game called Mindburners, and like I mentioned up top, I have not played this multiplayer. I do have my kids this weekend, so this is one of the many games actually that I want to get to the table with them, so I get a better understanding of it, under that type of scope. So, in any case, I think this is a fine example of a game that was designed more likely for a 2 to 4 player game, but they made a solo variant that actually plays very, very well. So a lot of times you see designers or games come out and they kind of tack on a solo an option for solo, and it's not very good. So, and this is not that case. This is actually a case where some time was actually put into some thought was put into it. I do have one minor suggestion, and one of the things you have to do for setup is you have these ability cards. I have 3 of them out here, and you always draw up to 3 at the beginning of each round. Each round you're going into the void, and it's essentially it has a blackjack kind of pressure luck feel to it. So you're drawing cards, you're losing health because you're drawing enemies. Your health goes down. At some point you have to make a decision. Should I leave the void and stay alive? And if you leave while you're alive, you gain energy for the next voyage into the void equal to how many cards you've explored. So there's a definite drive or push for you to explore as many cards as possible, because you need that energy to use these cards, which allow you to manipulate the cards that come out in the void. So there's a nice little cycle that going on there that I enjoy. There's the pressure luck mechanic here is the key here, that is what pushes the tension in the game. You use which I thought this is an interesting, cool idea. It's like I said, it's up to 4 players. So the trackers that you would normally use for other players to track victory points and health and whatnot are used in the game to track the number of rounds. So essentially, in a solo game, this is your timer. You have 6 rounds or 6 attempts into the void to collect 10 victory points. So not only is there the pressure luck tension being built, by trying to get through as many of these cards each time you go into the void to build up your energy and to find these victory points. But you're also a race against the clock here, because you need to get those 10 victory points before this deck expires. So very well implemented, very simple way of turning a multiplayer game into a solo experience. What was I going to say? Oh, so this void deck, there's 10 cards in it, only 2 of them give you victory points. So logic would have you say, once you get in a situation like this where you've already collected your 2, you might want to just leave. But that's not necessarily the case, because like I mentioned before, you want to explore as much as you can, because you're going to gain energy for the next round. So leaving right away isn't really your best option. Plus, you can find victory points in this roll event, which is a really fun little deck here. So certain cards that you'll pull, actually the next card would be what they call Chance Matrix, and that allows you to draw one of these roll event cards, and they do all sorts of things. Well, here's an example right here, Primed Terminal. You basically roll a 6-sided dice and see what the results are, and in this case a 1 or a 6 would gain a victory point. So there are ways of gaining victory points from this. So if you happen to get behind the 8 ball and you've gone through a couple of rounds and you don't have the victory points to get, there's not going to be a chance for you to get them from just getting these 2 cards. You can potentially get them from this deck. Another thing about this game that is amazing to me is the names of some of these things. Almost every other name sounds like a punk rock band from the early 80s. We have Ominous Orb. What was the one in here that made me laugh? Right here, Liquid Mother. Liquid Mother. I mean, that doesn't sound like a punk rock band from like 82. I don't know what. The Vile Dangler. I don't want to tell you what that reminds me of. Ballistic Corpse. I mean, all of these. Doombringer, Preserved Silence, all of these sound like band names. So that was making me laugh. But other than that, this is a fantastic game. I'm very excited to play it multiplayer to see how much more tension there is as you're battling other players for certain things. I think it would really amp it up even more. But as a solo experience, it's definitely worth it. I want to say it was about $20 at the Game Crafter. And and I was going to mention, the one suggestion that I have is during setup for solo play, this is the only small critique I have, is you have to remove ability cards, because a bunch of these ability cards have to do with multiplayer. So you have to go through, and there's particular ones that have to be removed. So my suggestion would be for there to be some sort of icon on here, maybe next to the number up top, maybe just maybe it says, maybe ask for solo, so you know to remove them, or maybe the cards that you keep for solo have an S, so you know that these are the cards you use for solo, some way so that you can pull them, separate them easily. That's the only suggestion that I would have. Other than that, a fantastic game. Gets a thumbs up from me, and I think it's, like I said, a great example of a game that plays slightly different than the multiplayer game, but they're able to use the components and create something similar yet different, but still has quite a bit of tension. So a fun one that I can't suggest it more based. Look at this artwork. The artwork on this is fantastic. Nathan does a great job of finding a few colors and adding black to it, and I don't know, to me it's appealing. I can tell one of his games immediately when I see a post. So yes, I would suggest checking this one out. Thanks. Okay, welcome back. What we have in front of you is all of my game ideas for the past 10 plus years. One thing that I'm noticing as I was kind of just roughly kind of looking through them really quickly before I made this video is that very rarely do I write anything on them, and I should do a much better job of doing that. So my suggestion to you, if you're a designer, is when you get a new notebook, write the date. This one here, I have a date, March of 2017. This one just has a game that I was working on. This is actually what Iron Helm was going to be called. It was going to be called Peril, sorry, but I decided to change the name to Iron Helm. So maybe we'll just look at this one. real quick. We'll grab a couple other ones just to see what kind of ideas or things that I abandoned or things that have changed, and you get an idea of, you know, the inner workings of a madman, so to speak. So here I got components, trying to figure out what components I'm going to be ordering. It looks like characters, warrior, mage, rogue, classic, different early stuff here, daggers, shields, chainmail. So I'm already starting to work on the primary hand, secondary hand, so the offhand. These are the starting items, or some of them made it to Iron Helm. Robes, leather armor, chainmail. Chainmail ended up becoming a loot item. Treasures. Looks like have gems that were just worth money, since the whole idea of Iron Helm was that you were an aging veteran hero and you were trying to build up treasure. So it was one thing that sort of got lost thematically, if I'm being honest, in the game. I mean, it's there, but you don't really gain a lot of treasure as much as I would like you to get more. It's more about getting loot and skills and spells and building your character, which is awesome and fun in its own right. But that was sort of lost. And yeah, this is interesting because here we have the original, well, some of the original ideas for the dungeon cards. Ambush, Howls in the Darkness, which some of these things never happened. Goblin Merchant, there is a merchant. Falling Rocks. So some of the traps I pulled back on, and in hindsight I wish I would have added more traps to it. It looks like in this version there were going to be different levels. So you would have a level 1 deck, a level 2 deck, and a level 3 dungeon deck. Things would get more difficult. So that definitely changed. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what these are. What else is in here? I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it is kind of fun to see all the different... Here's an idea for some trading game that I had. Draw 2 chits equal to the number of players. Divide into groups equal to number of players. So some sort of a game. See, this is what's interesting, is you go back and you don't know what the hell you were thinking about at the time. I don't know what that guy is either. That's terrifying. Stonefire. So it's fun because it's interesting because I have a name in my head, Stonefire, and I must have created 3 or 4 games that had that title or that name or that theme before I ended up actually making Stonefire. And it ended up being something completely different than the game right here. What else? Some sort of hunting gathering type game. I don't know what's going on here. Food, labor. Like I said, and don't feel bad if you don't have a lot of game ideas, because a lot of these notebooks are empty. A lot of empty space in there I need to fill up. Oh, this was a worker placement game I was working on. I think I actually posted. I got pretty far with it. I posted some pictures. Kingdom 18. That's a little game I released through another publisher. A little, almost kind of like my 4 Tribes, but it's a little 18 card game. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff. Oh, Dungeon Flip. This was what ended up becoming Zogar's Revenge, which is available on the Game Crafter. A little plug there. And this is the initial... this was a busy time for me. These are a lot of games that ended up going somewhere. A lot of this stuff doesn't go anywhere. So that's a good example of one. These are ones that I'm using right now, those notebooks. But let's grab something random really quick. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. This one doesn't have anything on it. I don't know. It might even just be empty. Oh, it's an empty notebook. See? See what happens when you actually go through? I got an empty notebook. See, I got to stop buying them. Maybe they're all empty. Wouldn't that be something? Underquest. Look at that. Back in 2016, the name Underquest was already in my head, but I don't know what it was back then. Maybe that was my idea before Iron Helm was to use that name. Market tiles. Oh, this was This was actually after I played Above and Below, and I was inspired by it so much so that I was going to build some sort of a worker placement game, and it was going to be called UnderQuest. And you're going to have quests that you went on, and 4 Tribes Second Edition. So here I am now. This is classic Jason right here. This is me figuring out how many cards I'm going to need, how much it's going to cost me from the game crafter, trying to figure out what sort of price, like how low I can keep the price, and to make the game enticing to people for them to buy. You don't want it to be too expensive, so I do a lot of this. So I think that's enough. I don't want to spend too much time, but as you can see, that's a game I was working on with my daughter, Mushroom Maker. It's interesting. Wonder Garden, that was a trick taker that's available now. I actually did that for a contest. But yeah, here's an example of something. I don't know what this is. Black Marsh. There's a boss card. I don't know what this is. No idea. No idea what that is. That was like I had to just get it down. So I think the whole point of me showing you all these is to say, get yourself some notebooks. Make sure you write the dates, because it looks like I did write the dates on some of these, but the vast majority of them, this one has a date, but a lot of them don't say anything. So don't do that. Make sure this looks like an empty one. There's some stuff in here. But yes, get yourself notebooks, write dates on them. When you have an idea, write it down, and that way you can catalog your madness, and then in 10 years go by, you can go back at it and be like, oh, there's an idea. And when you have a new perspective after you've designed more and more games or worked on more and more projects, you come back to an old idea and you might see something there you didn't see before. Because there's a lot of these games I get to like a roadblock and I'm like, okay, I'll move on to something else and then I'll come back to it. And then sometimes I just never come back to it, and I'll have a lot of games going at the same time like I do right now. And I used to try not to be that type of designer. I tried to be the designer that I start a game and finish a game. And I was in the beginning, but now I have so many ideas and things I want to work on that I just have a mess of things going at once, but it's working right now. It's working for me. So anyways, if you enjoyed this little segment, let me know in the comments below, and we can dive into some of these other ones and see what other kind of crazy nonsense. Maybe we'll venture into some of the really old ones before Grey Gnome Games was anything. So that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching. Thanks again for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Also, comments, I appreciate them. If you can go back and look. I do my best to reply to everyone's comments. I love talking about game mechanics and the whole process behind designing, developing, publishing games on my own. So any questions that you have, please leave them below. And I thank you again for stopping by.